Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Monica Wedlock-Kilpatrick and I serve as the Director of Connect Ministries for the National Benevolent Association of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. As we get started, I would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for future viewing on the NBA website at nbacares.org/prison-and-jail. This webinar is part of our 2019 NBA webinar series. Today's topic is combating mass incarceration through bail reform. We have all heard that our prisons and jails are overcrowded. What we may not realize is how many people are in our jails solely due to their inability to pay bail. For many, the possibility of sitting in jail until their case is heard is overwhelming. It could take months. So guilty pleas are entered, frequently by innocent people, just to get back to their families and jobs. The bail system is a remnant of Jim Crow laws that punish a disproportionately large number of people of color just because they are poor. This webinar will not only explore the present bail system in the United States, but will also introduce one solution, the Bail Project. Our presenters will share how a revolving bail fund is being created across the country through the Bail Project to combat the injustice of wealth-based detention, and share how you and your congregation and community can get on board and address this serious injustice. This webinar can be used as a tool for discussion and a call to action in congregations, in our regions, and our general church ministries. At the end of this presentation, there will be time for questions. So throughout the webinar, if you have questions that emerge, we welcome you to use the Q&A feature by clicking on the icon at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions. Please include your email address so that if we are unable to answer your question, we can follow up with you directly after the webinar is over. To request technical assistance, you may also use the Q&A feature. Again, the webinar is being recorded and will be made available for future viewing on the NBA website in the coming weeks. So to begin, let me introduce our speakers. Shameka Parrish-Wright is a bail disruptor in Louisville, Kentucky. Prior to joining the Bail Project, she worked as a community and voter empowerment organizer, a project manager, and most recently as a campaign manager. As the child of an incarcerated parent and a formerly incarcerated person herself, Shameka spends weekends doing art activities with families during visitation with the Special Project, a project of the Kentucky Foundation for Women. Shameka serves on the board of the Ann Braden Institute for Social Justice Research Community Council and the Sowers of Justice Network, among others. She holds a degree in human resources, and she lives in Louisville with her partner and 6 children. And Reverend Dean Bucalos, ordained in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, is the founding pastor of New Life in Christ Christian Church Disciples of Christ, a congregation he began inside a women's re-entry facility in Louisville, Kentucky. He is currently the executive director of Mission Behind Bars and Beyond, an ecumenical re-entry program that trains small faith-based groups to work with ex-offenders upon their release from prison. MB3 is also an MBA Incubate and Connect partner. Dean is a trained volunteer facilitator for the Juvenile Justice Pilot Program in Jefferson County, Kentucky, sponsored by the Restorative Justice Louisville, and he currently serves as the mission specialist for NBA's Prison and Jail Ministries group. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dean and Shameka.
Thank you, Monica, and thanks for having us as we discuss this very, very important topic that I think a lot of people are not that aware of, but one of the things that we're going to be exploring is not only the history of bail and why we're looking at bail reform as a critical and key issue, but ways in which our churches can get involved. I know that so many of our churches have members who have been involved in the criminal justice system. And what we don't understand sometimes is why they've been incarcerated and how they've been incarcerated even before they've had their cases come to trial. We are delighted to have Shameka with us this afternoon, somebody with a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we're going to learn what it means to be a bail disruptor. So welcome, Shameka, and let's sit back and listen to her presentation.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Monica, for that beautiful welcome. I'm so excited to be here. I'm here because Dean was very persistent, and as things got busy for me, I recently transitioned from just doing bail disrupting to being a site manager. And so because of that, my duties changed, and I've been wanting to do more community outreach. And I see this as a faith-based issue as well. So it was important to me to do this, and I'm very, very thankful that Dean connected me in that way. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of this, I would like to start with a video that I think is very helpful, because we know that people of color are disproportionately represented in our prison system, in our local jails, and I think it's good to lead with this Black man's story. And then after that's complete, we'll start with my story and we'll get into everything. Thank you. Okay. The sound was off. We were trying to get that fixed, but I'm thankful for closed caption. I actually used closed caption a lot. But you can always go and see that video at any time at bailproject.org, bailproject.org, and you can see that video at any time. I just recently left LA where Ramel is, where Ramel and the rest of my coworkers were. And I told Ramel that I often start the presentations with that video because of what it speaks to, because of his experience, and because it shows that he was given a chance. He returned to court. He made all his court dates. Once those dates were done, his case was dismissed in the end. He now works for the Bail Project, and he is amazing. And he was so surprised when I told him that this is how I start the presentations. I think it's a good voice to use as we get into this. So thank you. Remember, you can go and see Ramel's story at bailproject.org, okay? So next, before we talk about how bail drives mass incarceration, it's important to have these stories, especially stories of Black men, Black women like myself. And you would say, Shameka, how did you even get to this place of being involved in the Bail Project? Well, that came about unbeknownst to me. When I was 18, I was in a domestic situation where I had a fiance, and he got drunk one night, and he decided that he wanted me to do things that I didn't want to do. And he started to put his hands on me, and I just was scared, and I went and grabbed a weapon, and I fought him back, and I fought him off of me. And in the process of us fighting, someone, one of my neighbors, called the police. So when they called the police came. I had never been arrested before. I had never had to deal with the police before in that way. They asked me to tell them what happened, and they asked me to write it down. So I wrote down, as I was talking to them and explaining, I wrote down everything that had happened, what he had did, what I did to fight him off, how he ripped the phone out the wall, all of these things. And then next thing you know, I'm handcuffed. They said they have to take us both in. They took him to the hospital, and they took me right to jail. And then I'm going through booking, and I'm still not understanding, like, why am I here? I felt like it was self-defense. Why should I be in the jail? Like, why am I being booked? And then while I'm being booked, I hear the people, like, chatter from the people that work there, and they're saying, oh yeah, she's the one. She did that to so-and-so's son. She did that to who? So apparently they got the word that I was the fiance of a sheriff's son, a sheriff who had been a sheriff for 27 years. And I was here, and they knew where they picked me up from, and they started just saying all these comments. And so I was just so distraught. I was thinking about where my daughter was, because I was a teen parent. I had my daughter at 15. She was 3 years old when this happened. And I was like, who has my daughter? What's going to happen? Where am I going to go from here? What's next? And then next thing you know, I'm in there 38 days going back and forth to court. My public defender tells me that I've been indicted, and I'm facing 8 to 14 years in prison for felonious assault. And I said, how is that? And they said, well, you can't plead self-defense because you used a weapon. And then when they asked me to write down what happened, I basically had sealed my fate of discharge. And then I said, I can't do this. I'm on my way to college in the fall. I don't need this. Like, I need to get out, and I need to be with my daughter. Well, my public defender comes back and says that they're offering me aggravated assault, known victim harm, and I get 2 years probation, but I get to get out if I plead guilty. So after 38 days, yes, I did. I said, I plead guilty to this, and I got out, and I had 2 years probation. I went to college. I haven't been incarcerated since, but still now at 42, that daughter is now 26, and she just had her first daughter. If you run my fingerprints, that's what comes up. That charge when I was 18 in 1995, it's still there. I did the 2 years probation. I had no problems, but it's still a decision that haunts me till this day. If I had someone to help me with my bail, it was $10,000 at 10%, $1,000 that I definitely didn't have, my family didn't have. But if I had bail paid, I could have fought my case. I could have been presented as more than just a teenage mom against, and he even came to court with me and told the judge everything he did to me, and they still said there's no excuse. And I would have been able to be that mother. I would have been able to be a defendant that can really vouch for herself, and I could have did that all at the same time had my bail been paid. And so that, you know, along with other things in my life, is what sent me on this path of trying to understand what mass incarceration is, because my father was incarcerated most of my childhood, and I understood about going to visitations and the letters and the time he got, the things that he did that he said he was guilty of. I understood that, but I didn't understand how he kept going back and how many people in my community kept going to jail and you wouldn't see them. It was like they went to this place and then they were gone. And when you did see them, they were down and out, and it wouldn't be long before they were back because of other things that were going on. So anyway, I've always had an interest in mass incarceration, prisoners' rights, understanding that women, like now in Kentucky, women are growing in our prisons. We're number 2 in this United States, and Tulsa, Oklahoma is number 1, but we'll get into that. So bail drives mass incarceration. America is addicted to imprisonment. And as you see here, the US incarcerates more per capita than almost any nation on the planet. Many people are jailed without conviction of a crime. On any given night, 450,000 people go to sleep in jail cells across America without being convicted of anything. 75% of the people in local jails are there because they cannot pay bail. And I would tell you in Louisville, it's over 85% of the people that are in our local jails because they cannot pay bail. A key driver of US mass incarceration, pretrial detention accounts for 99% of all jail growth in the past 20 years. Two-tier system of justice, one for the wealthy and one for everyone else. So with that, as we talk about bail reform, I want to be clear the way I'm speaking of bail reform and the way that we at the Bail Project see bail reform. We see bail reform as twofold, just like that said that it was two-tier. Our twofold approach is the goal of bail reform is that our purpose is to drastically reduce and decrease the amount of pretrial incarceration. And another part of that is we're doing this and we're having data to show, because we want to be able to prove that we can address the racial and economic disparities in our judicial system if we attack it from this bail reform point first. We know that pretrial incarceration is a feeder into mass incarceration. And so we chose this angle. It doesn't mean that this is the only tool that we have, but this is the tool that we chose to approach this from. And I like to tell people about it being a tangible thing that we can do. You can actually pay a bail, get someone out, and watch that person come back to court, complete their case. It's a revolving community bail fund, so that money comes back to us and we're able to get someone else out. So I'm talking about tangible things in our work and in our world, and it's really hard now, right? There's a lot of big issues with racism and poverty and things that we feel we can be overwhelmed and feel like, what can we do? But I'm telling you, bail reform is something that we all can be a part of and we all can do something about. So what does it mean to be held in jail? If you would have been able to hear Ramel's story, his life was put on froze. It was frozen for $500. His life was frozen. No one could help him because that was their rent or that was their car note. So his life was froze. That means his housing, his job, his children, being able to see his children, all of that was froze. That's what happens to people every day. Even a few days in jail can mean losing your home, job, immigration status, even custody of children. 1/3 of sexual victimization happens within the first 3 days in jail. Half of all jail deaths, including suicides, happen in the first week. Jail is a terrifying, dehumanizing, and violent experience. That's exactly what it is. Also, when we look at people and we think about their family responsibility, some people are the caretakers for their grandparents, and their grandparents wouldn't get their medication if they're incarcerated for extended times. And this issue about jail and being held in jail, it impacts the whole communities. And so you'll be able to see that. And I often ask people to think about the people that they know who've been incarcerated. Some people have even helped to pay a bail, but churches and church groups have been paying bails for centuries, you know, getting together, getting the money together to help get someone out, because they knew how much that hurt a person and hurt their communities to have that person locked up, a lot of times locked up without being even for a valid reason, just locked up because of somebody was having a bad day or didn't agree with something that they believed in. So it's important to understand that even a few days in jail means your life just freezes right at this moment, and there's nothing you can do, and there's a domino effect to the things that happen after that. If you're in jail, you are 4 times more likely to get a jail sentence than if you had been free. And that jail sentence will be 3 times longer. If you're Black or Latino and cash bail was set, you are 2 times more likely to remain incarcerated pretrial than if you were white. We see that every day. We see 2 people have the same exact charge, and the Black person's bail is often set higher than the white person's bail, or other people are given more fluent people are given more chances to get out and come back versus somebody that's poor or just doesn't have the money. And we bail out a lot of poor white people, more poor white people than anything. And so a lot of times people just don't have the money and they can't get out. And so the longer they stay there, the more likely they're saying, well, I need to get out of here. I need to know my out date. I need to know what's going to happen. And so some people will take a plea, even if they feel like they're innocent, because at least if they take the plea, they get convicted, they know when their out date is. Besides just sitting there with court date after court date after court date and not knowing when, you know, it's going to happen for you. Coercing guilty pleas, which leads right into that. New York data indicates that over 90% of people incarcerated for the duration of their case pled guilty. On the other hand, almost 60% of the Bronze Freedom Fund's clients had their cases dismissed entirely. Also in that, there's another video by our CEO, which is Robin Steinberg, where she talks about that 60% of the people who had cases. So over 10 years, they bailed out about 2,000 people. And out of those 2,000 people, 60% of those people, cases were dismissed entirely. And then that doesn't even talk about the rest of the people who cases were amended down. Because a lot of times when you get locked up, a lot of charges are put on you and only some stick. You know, and sometimes it's the worst of the charges that stick with you. So when people are out and they're able to bring the evidence they need or do whatever it is they need for their case, then that means that their cases get amended down, a lot of times dismissed, and less than 2% of those 2,000 people actually went to jail and did time. Most of the people were out, amended down, or dismissed. And that's eye-opening. 14 billion paid by taxpayers. Taxpayers spend an estimated 14 billion annually incarcerating people who haven't been convicted of anything. That's $40 million each day. I know here in Louisville, I talk with the jail regularly, and they told me that it was $70 per day. And the average stay for everyone that's incarcerated is 23 days is the average stay. But we bailed out people that's been there 6 months to a year and a half. And he said to me, you all are saving the city a whole ton of money when you're helping people get out. We've only been here since May of 2018. But since then, we've bailed out over 630 people and counting, because every day we're bailing out new people. And in that, if you did the math at $70 per day, and with those average stays, that's a lot of money that can be going into wraparound services and resources that'll help reduce recidivism. You know, everybody says, where does the money come from? Well, we see where the money is being spent. And this means that people are coming back to court, they're ending their cases, their money is being released, and then we're able to go on and continue this wheel of helping people get out pretrial and fight their cases. And we've had some clients that said, Shameka, I did it. I need more time to deal with my situations. I'm going to answer to everything that I did. People, I mean, people get it. People understand justice. People understand equality. They want to be treated as anyone else, no matter what their station is in life. Reducing pretrial detention reduces recidivism. We've seen that to be true. Here's what the data tells us. People held in pretrial detention for longer or more likely to fail to appear during the remainder of their case and more likely to be rearrested before trial. Detained people are also more likely to receive a sentence of imprisonment, to be given a longer term of imprisonment, and to recidivate after sentence completion. The longer the period an individual is detained pretrial, the higher the likelihood of post-disposition recidivism. These probabilities were especially high for low-risk individuals and for those held for their entire pretrial period. I am living proof of this. This is one of the most important slides, because when I was telling you as a child, realizing that my father and his brothers were going back and forth to prison, this was exactly what I saw, the recidivism. And I didn't understand it then. I just would get a letter from him and say, what's going on? You know, it is true. We've seen people, even people with charged with more serious crimes like myself, are less likely to go back. Once they're out, they do what they got to do. You don't see a lot of them going back. Who we see recidivating, dealing with recidivism here, a lot is people who are dealing with drug and alcohol and mental issues. And you see that because when they're in jail, they're not getting the treatment that they need, right? It's not a treatment facility. It's strictly punitive. And because of that, when they get out there, you know, your life froze, but once you're out, it's like started right back up. And if you don't have things in place or the tools you need, if you don't have the faith, the resources, everything you need to go back out and do it right, you're not going to do it right. I mean, in the end, it took my father, he died at 56, but it took him the last 10 years and him wanting to be a better grandfather than he could be a father for me. That was his motivating thing. But it's different for everyone. It depends on what they're dealing with. And we see this, that the longer someone is detained pre-trial, the more hopelessness it sets in, right? You give up. And so I used to tell my father, you go back, it's like when you're out, you're on vacation. When you go back, it's like you going home. Well, that becomes the story for a lot of people. And we have to do something about this. And we know that pre-trial is where this starts. That's where you're contemplating. That's where you're debating with yourself. That's where you're praying to God and you're trying to understand how you even got here, what you can do next. I was that person in those 38 days. I was like, get me out of here and I'm never coming back. And I meant that, that was my promise to myself. And so it just means that you have to pay attention that pre-trial detention, if you reduce pretrial retention, it reduces recidivism. It's the numbers are there. There's no more else I can say about that. It's just, it will decrease. We have to focus on getting people out of there. Replacing one bad system with another. This is very important too, because as we talk about bail reform all over this nation, more and more people are leaning towards electronic monitoring, GPS apps, and things like that. Those things are just as problematic. If you replace one system with another, it's just they're saying you go from the frying pan to the skillet. There's still more issues to deal with. There's fees associated with these, and there's things that impose a lot more problems on people who are dealing with poverty that are not covered with this. So bail reform is spreading across the country, but some alternatives fail to address the large systemic problems: mass incarceration and structural racism. SB 10 in California was praised for ending cash bail because it broadens judges' discretion to hold people in preventive detention, imposes probation-like conditions on legally innocent people. And so people are pushing for that here in Kentucky, but it all looks different. People in California, they've run into issues on how do they do this. In Kentucky, our judges already have a lot of discretion. They have a lot of options, at least 6 or 7 more options that they can use besides imposing cash bail. Yet they choose to do bail. And we have a lot of things in place that they're working on, but that we still see a disproportionate number of people represented in our jails. So it needs to be all or nothing. You know, it has to be things that are inclusive and that are dealing with the other issues that come with that. You give a judge discretion, then what else happens? That judge makes a decision. If you focus on just doing more probation, then what happens with that? Who qualifies? And so that we see that being an issue. Another thing is Kentucky is one of the first states that had a statewide risk assessment tool. And everybody's proud of it, right? It's justice by algorithm. We're all proud that Kentucky is #1 in something, and that's good, but it's also flawed. I have talked to many judges and prosecutors and lawyers who all agree that it's a flawed system, but that they appreciate having it, but they also understand it's flawed. So what does that mean? Some judges don't even look at the risk assessment, and some do. The main issue here is with our judges. They don't want to let someone out that's going to reoffend, right? They don't want blowback. They don't want the media or somebody to come back and say, you let this person out, you gave them a chance. So this is how they're setting bonds. And so the risk assessment tools need to be based on needs. What are the needs of the clients? I do believe that it can be improved. I don't like putting people on these kind of scales personally, but if we had to be stuck with it, it needs to be reformed to the point where it can deal with a needs assessment, because it's still biased against African Americans. It's still biased against if you're an international person, and say you're having a bad day, you can choose not to even do your assessment. So that means your assessment is going to go on whatever you did 4 years ago. So if you missed court 2 or 3 times 4 years ago, then your assessment is still based on that. Then that means your bond will be set higher, or it wouldn't suggest that you could get an administrative release. An administrative release is just like they run you through the system. You don't have a lot of things that are bringing up red flags. And so the system before your arraignment decides to let you out on return on your own recognizance, or administrative release. Electronic monitoring is very, very problematic for so many reasons. There's a lot of faulty equipment. We've built out clients that are on electronic monitoring. One client's mom stopped at a Long John Silver's and had to, and the next time he went in, he was arrested because she made that 5-minute stop. There's not a lot of leeway. I cannot like you and know that you're on home incarceration and send the police to your house and tell them there's drugs in there. They'll come and they'll search. And if somebody else is in there drinking a beer, anything like that related, then you're rearrested. It's so, a lot of people become victims on electronic monitoring. There's no easier way to put that. A better way, just let them go, honor the presumption of innocence, text reminders, voluntary social service support. And people are just saying, oh man, we got to be tough on crime. You can be tough on crime and understand that people with low petty offenses don't want to have to deal with that. We had a woman that stole baby formula for $30 a can. She stole a can of baby formula. She was arrested. She got a bond for $500. Now, if she couldn't afford $30 for a can of milk, how is she going to afford $500 bail? So we're talking about those kind of people. Any high profile cases are going to be, murder, and those things are a whole nother level of things. We're talking about most of our people that are sitting in there pre-trial are people with these low level offenses, and they haven't been proven guilty. So even still, we still have to, the presumption of innocence, we have to stand on that. When people say, how do you get people out? We look at their ability to come back to court, and we look at their ability to pay. But the most thing we looked at is honoring that they are innocent until proven guilty. So if they can't pay bail, 90% plead guilty. This is so true. I've seen it even with my little stay in there. A lot of people just want to have it done and over with. Defendants who stay in jail because they don't have money to buy their freedom will almost always plead guilty, forfeit their constitutional right to trial, and likely go home with a criminal record, even when innocent. Yes, people who get out and are able to have their bonds paid, they're more likely to take their case to trial because they feel more empowered to fight their case, and if you don't feel empowered to fight, you're just going to take whatever because you need to know, hey, I know I'll be out on this day. and resume your life. And so we are talking about people's lives that are put on hold. So that is the main topic that I deal with. Is I let people know these are poor people's bail that we are paying. We are helping the poor. We are directly impacting the overcrowding in our local jails. We are directly dealing with these issues that lead to other issues. Kids are having a parent incarcerated is an adverse childhood experience. So when a parent is incarcerated, that child is affected. It's not a death sentence for the child, but it impacts their life. Who's walking them to school, who's there to help do homework, who's, just knowing that they have that other parent that they can rely on is so, so important. So the Bail Project formed after doing the 10 years of work with the Bronx Freedom Fund and leaving with those best practices. They said, let's take this nationwide. There's a lot of there's a lot of poor people in cities who are in need of assistance of bail and getting out pretrial. So that's the daring idea. So they get a fair trial. You look much better showing up in front of that judge in a nice suit. I have on a blazer and a t-shirt. That still looks better than having on a jumpsuit. You look guilty as soon as you walk in and you're handcuffed. Take it from me. You got striped, you got white and gray, orange, blue, whatever the color is, you look guilty as soon as you appear in that courtroom. It's a natural thing. People that's what they automatically see. And you're fighting to prove that you're not guilty. Well, when people are out, they get to prove that they're innocent or not, 96% of the clients return to court. 55% have cases dismissed, and less than 2% received a jail sentence. So that goes back to what the Bronx Freedom Fund found out after 10 years of operating. We are now from May 2018 to this date. Like I said, we built out over 630 people. We were hovering around 90 to 93% return rate. And we've had over 125 cases who are done. We've gotten the money back and they've been back out in society and they haven't come back in and needed our assistance. So we already see our numbers and we're probably going to surpass 2,000 by the end of the year. Of this year. So right now, from our numbers, we see that this is already working, that is a great formula to help people. And to see that less than 2% receive a jail sentence, that means that small amount of people went on to go into our state and federal prisons. And we already know with pretrial incarceration being a feeder into mass incarceration, you can see the big difference right there. How it works. Everybody loves this part, right? We received a referral. 95% of our referrals come from our local partners, which is the Louisville Metro Public Defenders. They help bring us here, as well as our local jail, as well as the Administrative Office of Courts. Records, we have at least 4 to 5 systems to work together that we work with every month, every week, every day to pay bails. We all work together to try to get people out. We all have that goal. We might have a different approach. We all have the goal to reduce pretrial incarceration. That is my understanding. That's what they tell me. But we received a referral from the public defenders. There's a public defender in arraignment every day. Arraignments are every day unless it's a major holiday. Every day from 9 to 11, there's always a public defender there. It rotates every week. So that public defender, as cases are brought, now mind you, people are only in front of the judge 2 to 3 minutes, but they get their snapshot of that case. It might qualify for the Bail Project, and they send it right over to us. We interview because if we just went off the pretrial report, if we just went off of what their case number said, then we're not getting the whole picture of the client or a potential client. So we make sure we interview so we can give them the chance. Hey, why did you have that FTA back in 2003? Hey, what is your main issue of getting back to court? And our number one issue for people getting back to court is transportation. It's transportation in our city of Louisville, and it's also remembering that they have court date on top of their treatment, on top of their medical, on top of the stuff with their kids. So reminding them of court, making sure they have the transportation has really made our odds and of our rate of people coming back really, really high. So step 2, voluntary connection to service. We look at ourselves as connectors. We're not social workers. We're not just putting a Band-Aid like, here you go, and sending them off. We're connecting them to things that are already going, to church groups, to homeless places, to treatment centers, to job readiness programs. We work as a connector, and that's all. We can lead them to it. They have to drink it, but we also make sure that we offer that to them. Because we know that we see that people are likely to come back when they're connected to their community. And this is a way for them to do that. Effective court reminders. We call, we text, we talk to the family members, we visit, we'll go by someone's home if we can't find them. I've been to St. John's Center, the homeless centers. We've been by hospitals if we know somebody's there, to let them know, hey, you have court. Will you be able to make it court? Let's let your lawyer know, so that we all are talking. So even if they can't be there, that lawyer can be there and say, hey, Johnny he's getting his chemo treatments right now. He can't be at court. If we've had cancer patients that we've gotten out so they can get their chemo treatments, because they will not get that in jail. And so if we're all in communication, we can let the prosecutors know, we can let the judges know on what's going on. But the court reminders are very effective. They're one of our most effective tools. So it's a revolving bail fund. And this is what really moves people. This is what moves the clients that we have. When I go to the jail and I do the interviews, this is what I tell them. I say, we are here to try to help you if you qualify, and we pay your bail. You come to court. We're not lawyers. We don't tell you to do anything. You fight your case however you see fit. Once you're done with your case, your money's returned to us, and we use it to get more people out. And that is the most moving fact. That's paying it forward. That's what would Jesus do? Like, that's everything. Like, people get that. If I don't want to hold up the process of the next person getting out, so I will make sure that I come back to court, do what I need to do. They call me and they say that on my voicemail. Shameka, I don't want to hold nobody up. I'm going to show up to court. Shameka, I want to make sure other people can get out. And they share our information. So we went the equivalent of viral in the local jail, because people started passing out our cards and passing on the information. And, you know, nothing travels like word of mouth. And one time I went there and they were like, yeah, the Bail Project in your name is, and your number is scratched into where we use the phone at. So that tells you that people are like, call this number and get it out. That speaks to the very spirit and the very essence of people being good at heart, good at nature, to want to, I'm going to help myself, but I'm also going to help make sure somebody else get out. I mean, that to me is amazing, but this is how it goes. The bail is set. We pay the bail if they qualify. The bail is returned to our fund, and then we use the money to get someone else out. So it started in the Bronx, like I said, those 10 years, and then it branched out. I thought we were number 4, but it looks like we were number 7. And then when I was hired, the goal was 8 cities. And so by the end of last year, we were at 11 cities. So it's growing, you know. So it's the Bronx, New York, Queens, New York, St. Louis City, St. Louis County, Detroit, Michigan, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Louisville, Kentucky, Compton, California, San Diego, California, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Spokane, Washington. And so as this grows, more cities are reaching out. The good thing about working for a big national organization is that we have a central team that is constantly looking at new cities, new opportunities to connect and to spread our work across the nation. So they handle most of that. There's people who have specific jobs to investigate what would it take. And you know, as you can imagine, our biggest struggles are in the cities that have the bail bond industry. Kentucky, I love to say that about us. We don't have that here, right? Our battles are different, and I'm glad that we don't have that here, because we're not fighting them. And typically, we pay cases that are $5,000 and below, and they would like something really higher. Those kind of places tend to focus on more higher bails. But the fact that some of our other cities are still dealing with that, they're still making a lot of leeway. Tulsa, Oklahoma only bails out women right now. They're working to bail out men, but also, as I said before, Tulsa, Oklahoma is number 1 with women that are incarcerated, and Kentucky is number 2. So this is more about scaling the model. Portfolio development is that what our objective is. It goes back to those 40 cities, 5 years, 160,000 people. If you go on the bailproject.org website, you'll see where I think it was over 3,600 people so far, and it's growing. Like I said, those numbers grow every day. We like to look at key activity models. So places that have jail closures. There's a Close the Workhouse campaign in St. Louis. I visited there and went to that rally event that they have for that. They're looking to close it. It's really no need for it. It's all pretrial. It's the dilapidated building. They have other options, and they're not just saying close something and not have a solution. We're not just saying pay a bail and not have a solution. Our end game is to end cash bail as the way we know it. But we got to do that with our stakeholders. The way that we move our stakeholders is through data, and we need that data to show, hey, people are coming back to court. You give them a chance. There's no need to set those bails that high. There's no need to have people out like that. And we're hoping that as we continue to build our data and build our numbers, that'll move the needle with a lot of key people in the for legislative reform, for more advocacy, for more working with more groups. And that will move our whole nation towards re-examining cash bail and eliminating it, hopefully. But right now, we're at the beginning stages. This is a campaign. A campaign is like, it goes, but we're also a project, right? I don't plan to have this same job 5 years from now. Especially here in our state, in Kentucky, because we have so many things that are already working for us that we can build and develop more on a needs base, that we can eliminate cash bail here. We really, really can. And I also want to, I've already been paying bails that are out of county. We've been having people from different counties, because I'm one of those people. I'm not just here. I love Louisville and I'm committed to Louisville, but I'm committed to the whole state. I care about every 120 county we have. And all my other statewide work, I made that so with my voter empowerment. So we want to take this work statewide to all 120 counties. And so we've already been starting to pay bails, and we pay bails in about four other counties so far, but we have to develop more on-the-ground support and advocacy, and this is another area that I feel like churches can be really, really helpful with, and getting key people that's going to help with the court reminders, help make sure that people make it to court and even show up as a court supporter, because, you know, having someone come to court and say, hey, I'm here because I support this individual, it goes a long, long way. So we have a lot of different options and different things we want to do. This breaks down the regions and the original planning and why Louisville. A powerful spot. I don't think that's me. So how it works. I started as a bail disruptor in May. I started with Holly Zoller. We go, like I said, we meet with potential clients. We interview every day, 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. And then we, after that, we go and make the decision. After we do our research to pay the bail, we pay the bail, we stay in contact. We also stay in contact with their lawyer, and we also talk to make sure that this person gets the best outcome. And Josh.
Shameka, thank you for that presentation. The idea to me is just a fantastic idea. It just makes such good sense. I've got one or two questions, and there may be some questions from some viewers. I don't know. Monica will let us know. But one of my questions is, so for somebody sitting here listening to you, hearing about this project, and wondering, so how I don't see my city in this list. How can my city get involved with this? How do we connect with this in locations where we might be? That's my first question. The second question is, so if in fact it's in my city, and I've got somebody in my congregation that I know, or somebody in my family that I know, what's the best way to make the connection to the Bail Project?
Oh, great questions. First of all, yeah, I have to direct you back to bailproject.org, or you can have someone contact me, and I would put you in the contacts with our development people, or people who do who investigate our new potential sites. And so all we need is a will and there's a way, you know. We will have a team that will investigate what are some barriers. I'm glad that this Marion County is up because that's a prime example. They asked me and Holly to come up to Indianapolis because they were wanting to start it. Well, Indianapolis had a lot of fees that they impose on clients. So we get $25 taken out of each bail as just a non-refundable fee. But in Indianapolis, even after you pay the bail, the client had another $300 and something. Well, there was a funder who decided, I will donate that excess fees so that you all can operate as a revolving bail fund and focus on getting those bails back. Also, Indianapolis imposes a lot of electronic monitoring, and that in itself comes with fees, and they have to be able to pay some of those fees up front. So one of the things with Marion County, as example, they called us up there, we presented, we start talking to the key stakeholders. We got a lot of people that were interested. They did the math, and our main site is in Los Angeles, California. They did the math, they sent some people out to make sure it can work, and then they got it working. And now Indianapolis is up and running, and you have David Gasper and Debbie Davis, who are now the bail disruptors for Indianapolis. And they just started last month, and it's going. So yeah, it's there. If there's a will for it, reach out to us, and something will happen. And then all for the church, for people that are church members, it's the same for them. If somebody is in Indianapolis and they want to be connected, they can go to the bailproject.org site, and it automatically routes to whatever city or whatever's the closest site to receive services or to be a part of whatever's going on. There's always volunteer opportunities as well. So yes, though all those things are there, I have to direct you to bailproject.org, or if you send them to me, I can definitely help.
Thank you.
I've got another question for you, Shameka.
There you go.
We know that there are a lot of folks right now that are refugees and immigrants who've been detained in our immigration detention centers and in some of our jails. And they're also, they're not being released because they can't post bail as well, or for some other reasons. Is the Bail Project sensitive to those folks as well?
Yes, of course. On that, I don't know if you remember the list of 11 cities, but San Diego, that site only bails out people who are dealing with immigration issues. And so they move quick. They bailed out hundreds and hundreds of people. They move much faster than we do because they don't get the same amount of time as we do to develop who our potential clients are. When they see a need and they're in contact with the people, they make sure that they get people out. And nationally, like in Kentucky, we have a few facilities here. We're working to build up that work. We're already in talks with people. We might end up getting a person that's strictly dedicated to helping people with immigration issues. And so yes, definitely that work is so important to us and important to us across the nation. But yes, in Kentucky, we're moving forward with finding someone to help us do immigration work and making, deal with those issues where the bills are connected to immigration. If we see someone that looks like they have immigration issues, or if their name looks international, we move them up on our list to help get them out, because we've had a couple people, when we went to try to get them, ICE had already had a hold on them. So once ICE put a hold, it kind of halts our work, but we're going to go beyond that. And there's like a strict $3,500 bill that we're working to be able to have the funds to go ahead and get them out even after the ICE hold. So yes, it's happening.
Dean, I have one more question for you, since our audience is faith-based communities and how they can get involved. We always want to look to the text or our theological understandings. What does Jesus say about this, to help us figure out our next step action plan? So do you have any thoughts on how people might reflect biblically and or theologically around this issue and the ways they can be involved with the Bail Project?
Well, thanks, Monica. It's a great question. I thought about that as we were preparing for this webinar. And I went back to Leviticus 25. In that amazing text, there was a period of time that they called the year of the Jubilee. And every 50 years, in that community of faithful people who are following God, there was actually a program that was designed to forgive people. So people were let out of prison. People were, Their debts were eliminated. There was a whole series of ways in which we experience God's mercy and God's forgiveness and God's grace. It's embedded in the Christian experience. It's embedded in the Hebrew Bible. It's part of who we are to understand that we're a people of mercy and justice, and that part of our mission is to see that people are treated fairly and equitably. And I can't think of a better issue that Jesus would have been involved with than to free people who haven't even been convicted of a particular crime. This is such an unjust system that we have right now. And so I think this is a really great opportunity for church groups, for Bible studies, for Sunday school classes, to look at this issue and see exactly how the church is being called to respond, and how the church can get involved in being part of the solution to this. And because we know that the nature of mass incarceration, the increased number of people who are in prison, the increased number of people who are disproportionately people of color who are in prison, affect all of our congregations. And so this is one way that we can begin engaging in a very positive way. It's really not controversial. We're not freeing people who have committed crimes and been found guilty. We're just giving people an opportunity to reunite with their families, to come back to work, to go back into their communities, and to try to work the justice system as it was designed to be, innocent until proven guilty.
That's an amen from me. Thank you both, Shameka, for your time, for your wisdom and experience around this topic, for the work that you do, and for the vulnerability to share your own story with us and with the world, so that folks know that they have another option, another opportunity, and that there are other folks out there to support them. We are so grateful for your leadership, and you as well, Dean, and the work that we're doing in the life of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ.
Yes.
This ends today's webinar. I want to thank you all for your time. I invite you to please consider the ways you and your congregation might get involved. Reach out to the Bail Project at bailproject.org and further your ministries in addressing prison and jail related issues. Today's webinar has been recorded and will be on our website, and we invite you to share this resource with others. The MBA also hosts monthly webinars on topics related to prison and jail ministries, our mental health initiative, and leadership and organizational development for our health and social service ministries. Please take the time to check out our website for more information. Remember also to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, visit our MBA webpage for more information about Disciples Health and Social Service Ministries, Prison and Jail Ministries, Mental Health Initiative. We look forward to sharing more information with you, engaging with you, so that we can advance the work of the church and ultimately the work of the kingdom. Thank you and have a great afternoon.